So welcome to the January Organic Open House. And I just want to start by introducing and thanking our NOFA New Jersey Executive Director, Nagisa Manabe, who has steered us through a very difficult pandemic year. That congratulations on all of you for making it through. And she's got some words for us to start us off. So over to you, Nagisa.
Okay, sorry, I realize that my camera has failed me, but thank you very much, Mike. Welcome, everybody. I really just wanted to get on today and remind you that our winter conference is starting on Saturday, and I'd really hope that you can join us for some or all of it. I'm pretty excited about the speakers. The first day, we have Rowan White, who'll be talking about her seed saving experience, and also she's going to talk a lot about growing indigenous crops, and she's out in California, but she has experience with folks all across the US. And so that'll be really exciting, and we're going to have a roundtable of people who are dealing with growing in urban areas at 2 o'clock. And the highlight of the day is actually our keynote, Senator Cory Booker, who's going to be speaking about the legislation he's proposed in Congress that's related to agriculture and why he's actually so supportive of ag. And that is the first day. And the second day, we have a number of really interesting speakers speaking on everything from the impact of climate change and adaptation strategies for the changing climate, which is Jackie Ricotta's talk. And then she's followed by Chris May, who talks about a small farm, a successful small farm in the UK. And then he's followed by Eric Tonesmeyer. And so if anyone doesn't know Eric, this talk is not to be missed. He's a fabulous speaker on carbon farming and perennial crops, and I think he'll be terrific. So anyway, and then we end the day with Dan Mays from Frith Farm in Maine. He talks a lot about his experience exploring no-till farming and where he is today. And both Chris, Eric, and Dan have all written books this year. So they're new books, and you might be interested in checking them out. If you go to the site, they're actually, there's a discount posted, so you can try that as well. So anyway, try and come if you can. We'd love to have you join. And of course, on Sunday, Mike is asking you to come because you're part of a roundtable of farmers on Sunday afternoon. And we're really looking forward to it. It's going to be quite an adventure. And then we also have emceeing the event, the famous Scott Morgan from Hillsborough. I don't know if you know this, but he's a very famous MC in the area. And he and Tony have quite a bit of fun in store for you over the next 2 days. So please join us.
The flyer? Are you guys see that on your screen?
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, good.
All right. So anyway, thanks for joining us tonight, and look forward to seeing you this weekend.
Thank you, Nagisa. Sorry, while I'm reaching through here. Now, so I was saying to Jared that I'm.
Mike, when you're doing that, can I ask Nagisa a question?
Yeah.
Nagisa, I believe all journey persons are allowed to come to the conference for nothing. And I know Josefina has given us a link, to, I think maybe just directly to the panel, but does everybody know how to do that? And am I correct about that?
They are, but we might have already pre-registered them. So Amanda and Josefina, can you go ahead and go on to Neon and check to make sure they've already been registered? Because we registered all the speakers already. So we might not have communicated that because we didn't think we needed to, because you'll just get a link. If you didn't get a link today, then let us know.
That was going to be my question, because the link that they'll get for their Sunday talk, will that get them into all the talks?
The email that went out today that Amanda sent out allows them to, that has 2 links, one for Saturday, one for Sunday. So yeah, so they have access to everything.
Great.
If you mean the link on the calendar, that one's for the whole day on the day in which that you're speaking or presenting. So journey persons are on day 2.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
believe. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. So they'll have the link for all of day 2, and that can be used throughout the day. But I just gave it to you so you remember that it's at that time that you're speaking.
So Amanda,
Yes.
can you check Neon and make sure all the mentors and all the JPs are registered? They should be. And if they're not, if we register them and then you send out the final email on Friday, they should absolutely have the links.
Yeah, no problem. I'll get on that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to jump into this. Bear with me a little bit as I struggle through, but for the most part, this is pretty much what we expect for the Sunday, our Sunday winter conference presentation. So journey persons and mentors, tonight, I'll ask you to take any notes about things that you'd like to do differently. If you want to present something differently, if you want something that I present tonight not presented, all those comments and crits would be very welcome, so that we can try to just tune up for Sunday. But basically, we're going to be giving people, our audience, an introduction to the Journey Person program, a little bit of history about how we got here, and but then really focus on introducing you guys, because that's really the purpose of the panel, is to let people meet you and hear about you. So NOFA New Jersey started about 35 years ago to provide New Jersey with an organic, focused, nonprofit organization. Our founders and we who have followed have always hoped to build a community from our members, our followers, and our supporters. Originally and consistently over the years, NOFA New Jersey has focused on providing technical resources for farmers, bringing farmers and apprentices together at farm tours, and providing workshops and training opportunities. As more farms invest in organic management practices, our community grew. Always, the challenge has been to determine how to best serve that community. Our annual winter conference is always the last weekend of January, and I encourage everyone to register for this weekend's Zoom extravaganza. You can see, as we've got up here, the NOFA New Jersey website, which is just been recently rehashed, or not redone, I guess, and renovated, let's say. One of the tabs that's near and dear to my heart is the education tab. One significant program that NOFA New Jersey offers is Exploring the Small Farm Dream, which is taught by Jess Niederer, well-known farmer. We also have the Road to Certification as a pretty core class that NOFA New Jersey has presented over the years. Al Johnson has been our esteemed presenter many times, and hopefully will continue to do it. Eric Bremer from the New Jersey Department of Agriculture sometimes join in. We've done this class at winter conferences as well. The other thing I should point out too is on our homepage, it's always the quickest, easiest place to find out what's coming up next. Matt Wilkinson and John Lima will be presenting a class about raising and processing chickens, which should be pretty good. How to provide support for new and transitioning farmers has always been central to our mission. And tonight's topic has fantastic potential for that. For connection, direction, and community building. I'm pleased to present the Journey Person program and our 4 Journey Persons from 2020. And I think we also have our mentors here tonight. So a brief intro to the Journey Person program. Hopefully we're going to get some people that join us in this talk call today, certainly at the winter conference. And then also in February, we're going to be dedicating the open house to talking about the 2021 program. So the application is really the first step for engaging with NOFA New Jersey. It's a good way for you to share your basic information, contacts, what your background is, so that we can engage in the process with you. On the same page, there's a discussion of, an outline of qualifications, requirements, and benefits. These are things that we might end up talking about a little bit more tonight in our discussion. For the most part, what NOFA New Jersey is looking for from Journey Persons is that you come to the program with some experience, that you have stable access to land, that you're committed to ecologically sensitive farming practices, organic management practices being included in that you have a farm plan, and most importantly, that you're open to sharing your plan, your vision, and your journey with a mentor, and then ultimately with an audience, as a means to being supported and contributing to our local food movement. Tonight, our focus is the 2020 Journey Persons. I'll share my screen to click through some photos, click on the links for our Journey Persons. I'm going to ask our mentors to chime in during the Journey Persons introductions to help them come up with topics if they run out of information to share with us. Okay, so before we jump into the Journey Person's intro, the Journey Person intros on their own, I'm gonna share with you some satellite images of the 4 farms that we're talking about, just to get you a little dialed in. In the process of putting these together, a lot of them were old, out of date. So what you're looking at tonight is just going to give you a sense of where these farms are located in their environment. So we've got the Closter Farm and Livestock Company up in Northeast New Jersey. Jared, what's your county?
We're Bergen County.
Bergen County. So this farm is an example of a very intensive farm on fairly small acreage in a very densely populated area, producing high value organic produce for sale retail. When I visited the farm towards the end of this season, all these trees here had already been transplanted out of the way, and this area was the prime production area. This is my little people are where my arrow is. Okay, we're looking at Snapping Turtle Farm here. This land too has now the infrastructure improvements include fencing around the whole farm. There's been a barn that's built, a gravel roadway extended to access the land. Again, it's a very interesting piece of property. It's surrounded on 3 sides by wetlands. 2 sides go into extensive agricultural areas, and the other 2 sides are completely developed. So this again is an interesting feature of New Jersey farmland. this wild land of the wetlands, the tended agricultural land in close proximity to high dense populations. Spicebush Farm, located on Route 202, just outside of Ringoes, New Jersey, close to where we are in Hunterdon County. I think we'll hear from Michael, but I think this was probably maybe their first year there, maybe their second year. And I think they're going into third or fourth year. We'll hear more.
This is second year.
Second year, that picture was, or?
Yeah, second, that's an old picture actually. So this is our second year. Now you can see fence, gates, and we have well and 2 sheds, 2 small sheds, and then all the rows built, and so much greenery.
Great. And then, and I'm going to try to wrap up here so we can get to you guys. And if you guys want me to pull up your map again, or your photo to illuminate anything, just let me know. It's right here. So Zell's farm, Zell and Shu Hong are at the end of this lane, Clerico Lane. And when I was there was a chicken tractor here. There were big beds formed here where they're planting their garlic. A fair amount of infrastructure on the farm, including buried water lines for irrigation. But also these guys are sharing space with their landlord who has permanent plantings of hazelnuts and things like that. So again, you see the intensive development right on their borders. So this is New Jersey agriculture. So what I'd like to do now is turn it over to each of our journey persons. Would any of you like to go first? Michael, you were speaking up first, so I'm going to go with you if you're ready.
Yeah, I can start. Yeah, my name is Michael Reddy, and my farm name is Spicebush Farm. We just finished 2 years of farming, exclusively most of the Asian varieties, and we just completed fencing on the roadside. That's what last year's tomato, and next to this we planted garlic, fresh garlic, and then we already started building the rows for the next season. So we are going to put a trellis, 20-25 rows. Each row is going to be 200 feet. We'll have 25 minimum trellis rows to plant all the gourds, different type of gourds, like a bitter gourd, bottle gourd, and there are so many other varieties, ridge gourd. And then we have on-site manure compost area. It's sufficient for this year. We are going to spread it from March. The guy is going to come and help us to spread the entire land, and then after that we'll build more rows with the covers, because last year we had so much problem with the weed. So this year we already prepared well. We bought all the fabrics and covers, everything, and then we are planning better way than last year. And we already discussed with Mike and Scott. Scott is my mentor, so they helped us how to overcome the weed, the issues with the weed, and we are going to implement them. And also we have started practicing no-till from this year. So we are doing kind of experiment, and if it works out well, so then we are, in the future we are going to go for no-till the entire land. So our goal is to plant as many as vegetables, because we are going to West Windsor market from this season to support that market, and also we have our own market local. The people come to us, and also we deliver to their neighborhoods. So we are planning how to support many families with very good quality of vegetables and different varieties.
I'll just go ahead and chime in real quick. Mike and his wife have done an amazing job on the farm. We worked through, as Mike mentioned, some challenges of significant weed pressure, and honestly, on their own, Mike discovered the beautiful benefits of occultation. Had a bed formed and covered, and wasn't able to get any light on it, and lo and behold, when he pulled the cover off, there were no weeds. Went ahead and planted it, and that was a great aha moment, that just came, as many things in farming do, just kind of they just come to you, they just happen. I've been hugely impressed with as I drive by the farm periodically to see the fence going up. It looks amazing. It's really well built. If I'm not mistaken, you and your sons, Mike, built that whole fence. And it's right on 202, so thousands of people a day are going to see it, and it looks great. On top of that, Mike has made the really smart step of developing a relationship with a gentleman that brings horse bedding, and Mike has got an absolute abundance of pure gold in the form of organic matter and manure currently stockpiled in one corner of the farm, which is going to go a long way towards helping to increase the nutrient capacity of the soil and the nutrient levels in the soil, and a lot of organic matter to feed the developing soil biology as this is transitioned from, I believe it was corn and soybeans before you guys got it. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I steered these guys towards some resources early in the season when we met, just to help find the best source for some of the irrigation materials and things like that. And then really, Mike, hats off to you guys. You guys ran with it in a really hard year and seemed to have done really well with it. I had some of the garlic that you grew, and it was absolutely amazing stuff.
Yeah. One comment, like, thank you very much for your Scott developed like a very good document. He gave all the details, like where to contact for your irrigation, for your supplies, seeds, and other types of manures. And he created he put a lot of effort to create the document, and it's very nice document. If somebody want, we can share the document in the future to others also, if Scott and Mike is okay. Yeah, it's a very good document.
I'm putting a little star down to that. We'll come back to that in the discussion, talking about resources. Can you, Michael, can you tell us a little bit about how you got interested in agriculture, and maybe just talk about your journey to get to this place, and also including, your interest in organic?
Yeah, actually, basically, I'm my forefathers and my fathers, we are from family of farming agriculture background, and we grew up on the farms. So that's why we are very much interested, even though we work in IT, but we don't want to disconnect our roots to farming. So we started looking for farmland. We searched many places. So finally end up buying land very close to our house, and it's very convenient, just 7 minutes from my house. And we started attending organic NOFA meetings. So we used to register for, most of the time we register a free webinars or free on-site tours. Me, my wife, and my son, we visited many events, and that's how we started learning about organic, especially in New Jersey. And we started looking some online NOFA site and other sites, and we learned many things. And after that, with the mentorship, we learned even more than before.
And you were telling us you had a pretty good season as far as finding customers and them finding you and coming out to your farm, even without facilities or anything, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, most of actually we have more visitors, but we we didn't plant that much. So whatever we planted, we are able to sell them.
What kind of things come up for you, Mike, as your sort of lessons learned in these recent years as you get your new farm established in Hunterdon County, New Jersey?
Yeah, the main thing is we have to control the weed. So that's the first thing. And prepare the land ahead with the good manure and compost. And build the rows with as much as possible with the covers, row covers, with the good irrigation system. So that will save us time. And most of the seeds, whatever we bought, like we have like a 99% growth rate. We didn't have any issues with the seeds. We bought from Johnny's and Harry's and some other seeds companies. And then, yeah, we don't have any issues with the seeds, growth rate. And it's better to better planning is good. When you have so many customers, it's better to grow more than the number of customers you're going to get. So that way, the people will get good impression that you have so many varieties available, and then they can tell some others about our produce.
What would you say your primary ways of marketing are?
Most of the time through like a social networking, like Facebook and WhatsApp, and also through friends and families.
How does WhatsApp work for you?
We created like a group of our own farm group. So then we send the link to our friends and family members, and then they forward to others. So that's how like it goes from one person to other person with a small explanation about our farm.
Interesting. Any other questions, Scott? Or highlights?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Mike, do you feel like the clientele that you have is particularly interested in your more ethnic vegetables? Or are you serving a broader clientele that is interested in all of the different vegetables that you?
Yeah, I can say the broader, not only ethnical, because most of the people, they want to try other vegetables also. Like whatever we have, we exclusively picked some of the like a very good varieties. And when they visited our farm, they asked whether they can buy other American vegetables or other different varieties. So then we told them we'll contact with our neighboring farms. If anyone is able to supply, we can include those in this year.
So an interest in networking with other farms to expand what you're offering, sounds like.
Yeah, kind of collaboration. Like if they have something, they can always come to us and we can include those in our farm.
I'll interject here. One of the things that I saw when I was there with Mike was that he and his family have a unique knowledge of a very different selection of both leafy vegetables and vegetables that clearly grow here well in New Jersey, but we are not accustomed to growing. So you've got a great place to do just that. I think, Mike, to collaborate, to harness the power of your own skills and your own knowledge to grow a deeper depth of variety and partner with others who might be able to grow some more commonly known varieties. And by doing that partnership, really expand your markets without having to do twice the work. I saw two questions in the chat that I'll just bring up. One, I don't know the answer to. Mike, do you own or are you leasing that ground?
I own the land because the main reason we own the land, we want like buy, because when you lease, you have some rules and regulations. So do this, do that. You should not do this. You should not do that. So when you own the land, you have more flexibility. And also when you add the manure, like you are not only adding and preparing the soil for current year or next year, you are preparing for the future also. So whatever the effort we are putting, it should go for like next 5 to 10 years.
Yep, you're absolutely right in that account, and that's hard to deal with on a leased basis. The other question, and I think I know the answer to this one, is it a family operation? It is just you and your wife and your sons who are operating this. You don't have any employees, correct?
No, yeah, that's correct. Yeah, myself, my wife, and I have 2 boys. They're very good in helping. My elder one, he takes care of all the irrigation. He's very good. He actually, his background is in HVAC. So he's very good in irrigation system. And my younger one is very good in plant. Whatever he plants, it grows 100%. It's like very green thumb.
Nice. That's awesome. Okay, Mike, we're going to wrap up with you, and we'll come back to questions for discussion after we're done with everybody else.
Okay, sure.
Allison, Jared, Zell, Shuhong, who would like to go next?
I can go.
Okay, thank you, Jared.
No problem.
So, tell us about your journey, how you became interested in farming. Tell us about your story getting engaged with farming, organic, what's it mean to you? I'll bring those up again, but off the top of your head, let us know where you're coming from. How's it going?
I grew up in Boston. Favorite color is purple. Studied economics and Japanese. Absolutely no background in farming whatsoever. I thought at one point cows came from the supermarket. I think I was 4. My mom still brings that up. After school, I joined a food startup. We made really healthy food for preschool and daycare age children, along with associated educational material, and delivered it every day to preschools and daycares around Boston. We got a lot of, this is a great idea, but I'm not willing to pay for it yet. And we actually just launched this website tonight. It's like a revamp. So I'm looking at it now on your screen. It looks good. I'm happy with it.
Yeah, it's all new to me too. It's like,
Yeah.
oh boy, I don't know where to go with it.
So after bouncing around a little bit after that, went belly up. I moved to New York City, walked in the front door of Floyd Cardozo's brand new restaurant and asked to work there with very little experience. And he gave me a shot. And we became very close. I worked there for a little over a year, and just was a little worn down from being a New York City cook. So I decided to go into farming, which I thought would be very restful and slow. So I took about a month and looked literally all over the world for a gig. I looked at woofing. I looked at places in Massachusetts, New York, Japan, Africa, everywhere. I looked everywhere. I had no idea what I was looking for. I got rejected from an incubator farm in New York City, founded by Elon Musk's brother, who made a mistake. Instead, I ended up in North Carolina, just outside the Research Triangle, so about 25 minutes, 30 minutes west of Durham Chapel Hill, where I apprenticed for a year. And the reason I chose that farm is because it was a holistic approach to farming. They had 250 acres under management, about 110 that they owned, some of it conserved, some of it where like power lines were. And they were a tillage production for their vegetables when I got there, but by the end of the time I was there, they were no-till, which was a very interesting transition to be a part of, and not something I knew that was going to happen while I was there, but kind of got me into that way of thinking. They ran about 100 head of cattle, a couple hundred sheep, a couple hundred hogs, bunch of chickens, bunch of layers. So, you know, really everything, and did restaurants and farmers markets. And it was founded by a ex-New Yorker who had moved down 30 years ago, who was also a PhD soil scientist who had formerly taught at NC State. So that's where I cut my teeth and kind of got the groundwork and understood what I wanted to do. After the apprenticeship, the opportunity came up to jump to, sorry, Nikki's is sending me stuff. I jumped to Doublebrook Farm in Hopewell, New Jersey, and ran their poultry program for just about a year. And that was pretty cool. We revamped a lot of the infrastructure, learned a lot about, you know, raising animals. At one point we were, and I believe they are now, hatching all of their own stock on site, and then processing everything on site to be sold through their own outlets, which you would call a vertically integrated business model. I really liked that business model, and actually on my way driving down to North Carolina had asked to speak with John McConaughey, who owns Doublebrook Farm, and he spent 3 hours with me just driving around talking to me, and that really stuck with me. So it was an easy email to make when I was wrapping up my apprenticeship. At the end of my year at Doublebrook, I started to get a little antsy and looked at Hudson Valley Farm Finder, which is one of many farm listing services. And I hope to answer a bunch of the questions that were asked all kind of in one swath. But it's a listing service that is aimed to help protect farmland as farmland, not necessarily to preserve it or conserve it, but to help maintain it as usable farmland. So it pairs aspiring farmers or farmers with little to no capital to get into land with typically transitioning farmers or wealthy landowners who have absolutely no idea what to do with the land, but know they want it to be a farm for whatever reason. I didn't realize there was a 7-acre plot of land 20 minutes from the GW Bridge, but there is, and we are farming it. It had been a farm forever and slowly been parsed out and parsed out and parsed out. And actually, just before the current owner purchased it, was in discussion for being broken up into 15 houses for development. But the current owner astutely decided that was not the best use of the land. And we got to chatting and just agreed on all sorts of stuff, really the broad strokes and what makes a business partnership work. We kind of understood that the details would fall into place as we got stuff going, but our temperaments were the same. Our use of the land, our understanding of how to formulate our partnership were in alignment. So it became obvious that it was a good thing to try to pursue with one another. So I do not own this farm. It is owned by a family, and I'm employed by that family to run this farm. But I was tasked with writing up a pretty extensive business plan, and I manage it nose to tail. So we have conversations, the owner and I, sometimes multiple times a day, sometimes once every 2 weeks, sometimes once a month, based on our needs and the needs of the business, but it's really my ship to steer as long as we're following the guidelines that we set out together at the beginning of the year. And we approach it much like I would approach a bank. And, you know, I'm not being, you know, we're very respectful of one another and try to approach it as a partnership versus one of us telling the other what should be done. And so far, it's been fantastic. I wouldn't ask for a different situation. So we broke ground. That first map was us. So you can see our proximity to neighbors is very close. And we broke ground in February of last year because it was so thankfully warm right before COVID, and 2020 was our first year in production. So we did, as you saw on the Instagram, we moved about 35, 40 apple trees around the property to make room in that major growing space, took down some decrepit trees and got going. We do have a tractor, and I would describe us as low till. Our goal is to be generally no till, but I do not see tillage in and of itself as a bad thing. I see it as something that should not be overused and abused. I'm not dogmatic there, but something I am really passionate about is no weeds. I agree with people like Connor Crickmore and Jean-Martin Fortier that you should do everything in your power to rid your farm of weeds if at all possible, and if it's within the scale of your business model. So that was really something we strove to do. And it also really matches our aesthetic in that we serve a high-end clientele. We're surrounded by a bunch of the wealthier zip codes in the nation, not to mention New Jersey. So the people who purchase from us expect a very polished product and a very clean cut image. So that's really what we shoot to achieve. And it also honestly makes farming a lot easier, even though it's a lot more work at the outset and you don't reap any financial benefits from focusing so much on weed management. And John and I cannot pronounce his last name, and I will if I'm forced to, but John, who runs Rolling Hills, was my mentor this year and was instrumental in helping me make a lot of tweaks and small decisions that all together culminated in some, you know, really radical larger shifts in how I was thinking about doing things, whether it was guiding me on what varietal of carrot to go for, or, you know, what's more marketable, how to package things. So it was a really beneficial relationship in those regards.
Maybe I'll interrupt you real quick, Jared, and see, John, any chance you can unmute and join us in here? And I'd love to hear any thoughts you have about your experience driving up into concentrated population land and meeting with Jared.
Yeah. So, well, first off, it was really nice to meet Jared. We had a really good relationship. We hit it off. Double broke, and so had I. And yeah, it was just really cool to actually have someone to kind of like talk shop with throughout, you know, any given day, and just kind of like spitball ideas around. Gloucester is crazy. It's definitely where like professional athletes and celebrities live. And he's just like smack dab in the middle of it. And I was really impressed when I got there because it really was beautiful, you know, picture worthy, and anyone coming in to kind of like look around would definitely feel at peace and leave with a good impression, you know, whereas in July and August, like our farm just, you know, looks crazy and unkept, which is fine. But yeah, it was impressive. really well thought out infrastructure ideas that he made early on, his irrigation system, all buried lines. And he is doing kind of like a small scale market garden, if you will. So a lot of those infrastructure needs were like well thought out and well executed early. And yeah, I mean, it was, you know, I was really impressed. I met John, the owner, and you know, Jared described it perfectly right. I mean, he really he had, you know, the balls in his court, Jared's that is. He's really kind of formulating the vision. And, you know, they have a good dynamic. So it was cool.
All right. Well, so I think we've got to the end of your 10 minutes there, Jared. So we're going to come back to deal with questions and discussion.
Can I?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not supposed to answer this question.
Well, you know, go ahead. But we'll answer the one question. Go ahead, and then we'll move on to the next.
Okay. Squiccerino. There, I did it. Shuhong, I totally screwed up this year with my eggplants. I planted them early and didn't cover them, and they got demolished by flea beetles and whatever else. And then I also didn't have a propagation house this year, so I started stuff what became my store and transplanted things in my house, and then kept stuff in my house and on my front porch, moving them in and out every night and morning, which was a lot of fun. And then once I realized the mistake I had made, I tore a bunch of stuff out of the ground and replanted all the extra eggplant I had that I had slated to sell to customers. So that's how I had eggplant that survived flea beetle season, because they weren't in the ground. But this year I'm going to cover them and do like a sacrificial lamb at the end of each bed. I'm also playing, and maybe this is too much, but I'm also playing around with doing hedgerows mixed in with stuff we grow, and then only spraying. We are certified, so I only use certified sprays, but only spraying in the hedgerows and planting those out early so that they attract the pests, and then hopefully those early pests get eaten up in the hedgerows. I can't remember what that tactic is called, but like, yeah, so that kind of thought process, and then covering. Huh?
Biodynamic.
Yeah, and then covering the trap crop. Thanks, Scott. And then covering with like 1 layer of 1 ounce frost cloth, which I double use as my frost and insect netting. So, you know, until the thread is gone, or I can't do it anymore.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Jared and John. John from Rolling Hills Farm and Scott from Morganics. I put their links to their websites in the chat. They're two mentors so far. Do we, Zell or Shuhong or Allison, anybody, either of you guys ready to go?
We can go.
All right.
I can go. Thank you, sweetie. So we started out living in Bergen County, and we were living in a little residential house in Bergenfield, and we wanted to. We grew a really big garden in our backyard, and then we needed more space, so we planted out the front yard, and then the town told us we couldn't plant vegetables in the front yard, and they told us to rip it out. And I asked them what ordinance that was, and they said, "Oh, that's okay. You can leave them there." But anyways, we decided that we still needed more land, so we started looking for land to buy. And after several years of not finding land to buy, my wife found this property on New Jersey Land Link. No, on Land Link, yeah. and she said, you need to call this guy, and I'm not looking at another property until you talk to this guy to see about leasing his land. And we talked to Ed Clerico, and met with his wife, him and his wife Sue, and we, toured the property, and the property had irrigation and deer fencing, and it was smack dab in the middle of suburbia for Western New Jersey, Central New Jersey, and we thought it was perfect. So we moved here and we started raising vegetables, and we were at the NOFA conference 2 years ago, right? I don't know. Anyways, before we even got the land, my wife went to one of the talks about chickens. And so the next thing you know, we had chickens, and we have lots of chickens now. We raise chickens for eggs, and we raise chickens for broilers, and we also have poussins. And then we were last fall, we were going to get into the new, not last fall before last, we were going to try to get into the Trenton Farmers Market, and we were selling mushrooms at our farm stand, that we bought from a friend. And the Trenton Farmers Market says, well, you have to grow your own mushrooms. So we started growing mushrooms. So now we do vegetables and mushrooms and chickens and eggs. And, what else?
Did these two little precious things hatch out of eggs?
No. Those they're because of the healthy living and the vegetables and the healthy lifestyle we took on before we ever had a farm. So it's a big part of why we wanted to get into organic farming. We feel that when you're eating good, clean, healthy food, you are healthier. Amazing. We wanted children. We couldn't have children, and we started eating better, and then we had children.
Can you talk a little bit about your relationship to the farmland that you use and how that works, renting land, right? Because can you talk a little bit about your land arrangement?
Yeah, sure. So we lease just under 38 acres on 2 pieces of property, Carriage Farm and Clerico Farm, which are 2 properties at either end of Clerico Lane. Carriage Farm is more like an office park, but there's a lot of agricultural land around it, pasturage mostly. And that's where we have our farm stand. And then down at Clerico Farm, which is where we live, there's a house that we live in on the farm. And so there is 50. There's 20 acres down here, right? No, 22 or 23 acres. And a lot of that is 15 acres is across the creek. So we haven't really used it all that much until now. It's hard to get to. And there's no deer fence, and there's a lot of deer pressure because we're surrounded by housing developments, and the deer have no place to go other than here. So we have about 8 acres that's in a deer fence, and we're on a 3-year lease with a renewal coming up, and that doesn't seem to be a problem. So we're planning short, long term. It's like Mike said, it's hard to plan long term when you don't own the land. But it's a lot of the practices that we believe in really require long-term planning. So it's kind of.
I'll ask Al, your mentor, to chime in too, but I'd like to ask you to talk a little bit about your adoption of sort of larger scale vegetable production techniques. I mean, can you talk a little bit about it seems like from what you've said, you kind of came into it with really no background.
That's right.
But
At the time, I looked at getting an internship on a farm, but you know, they were offering us a place to live and no money. And I had a job and a house, so there really wasn't much of an option. So we rearranged our entire life so that we could get into farming. You know, we got rid of the mortgage and figured out a way to survive on one income. So
when I was looking for pictures for your stuff, I didn't find much in the realm of photos of the vegetables. And I know how that happens, because when you're growing vegetables, your hands are dirty and you don't have your camera and you're so busy and you're thinking about the next thing anyway.
Yeah.
So, but lots of mushrooms. So mushrooms are obviously something that is really working for you, it seems like.
Mushrooms are doing well for us. I'm just completing a 20-foot shipping container grow room. You know, the electrician's supposed to come in the next week or two and give it a direct line, and then we'll be able to start growing in there. It'll have you know, consistent humidity, consistent temperatures.
You can see our earliest picture of our back.
Oh yeah,
garden.
on the lower left-hand side, that's from our backyard in Bergenfield. Our garlic scapes, and when our backyard was 2/3 garlic one year.
First farm.
Yeah, the biggest challenge was just testing out all kinds of machines, from very small scale farming to a much bigger scale farming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we have access to a lot of equipment on this farm.
Often say, okay, this tool should be good for us, but after this year, we decide to move on much different tool.
Yeah.
So those tools that are available to you, is that an arrangement you have with your landlord, that the tool, you haven't had to go out and buy a tractor, but you do have access to one?
Right. We have in exchange for maintenance and upkeep, we get use of the tractors, since, you know, they're on the farm owns them, and he's not using them for much of anything at all at this point. So other than when they occasionally plant in new rows of hazelnuts. So.
There's Al, your mentor, Al Johnson.
Hey, Al.
One of the founders of NOFA, organic inspector. Al, what kind of things struck you as you got to know Zell and Shu Hong?
Well, first of all, they're very nice people. Yeah, and I say that this is a developing relationship, because a typical year I'm all over the state, and my original thought was I'm just going to stop in unexpected a lot of times, because even listening to Scott, some of the things he did with Mike, it sounds like those are things that he kind of learned, just not necessarily planning. I think, you know, the times I have been there, there've been definitely planned operations. I feel like I was going on a tour where, you know, maybe I could have been. That's why I say maybe I could be more productive if I just stopped in, find out, you know, seeing people what they're actually doing at the time. But I do look upon this as more of a long-term relationship that you know, hopefully will continue for years coming. But yeah, I mean, I was impressed with their chicken tractor. It's pretty efficient, as well as you know, the mushroom operation. I do see a lot of mushroom operations in my inspection work, and, you know, they're doing fine with those. So yeah, after you said that, Mike, I said, you know, I should have had my camera out when I visited, because my hands weren't dirty, and I could have helped you guys out a lot. And I'll keep that in mind for the future.
You're always welcome, Al.
Thanks.
One thing that
unexpected.
We definitely want to. We sort of feel like with the pandemic, we didn't really get to do justice with the journey person. So we're continuing keeping you on our our slate of attention for this
But
coming year.
Al was able to help us out a lot with the we only asked him one real question, and he came through with flying colors for us. We asked about a way to do a trellis, big trellis for cucumbers and beans and melons and all that stuff. And so he sent out an email chain, and we got 3 or 4 different ideas from a bunch of people. And we were able to select the one that worked best for us, and we went ahead with that, and it was great. So we really have to thank you for that, Al.
I'm not seeing chat. Is there any questions that have come up? We could.
Well, I have a question that really pertains to all of the Journey people, as well as I have a question that pertains to all of the mentors. The question for the Journey people is, all of you are surrounded by development. And I'm wondering, what is your interaction with your neighbors? Have they been pleasant and okay with your operation, or have they given you any trouble as to the smell or the activity level or traffic or whatever on your farm? The question that I have for the mentors, I would like to hear more about the input that you had with the Journey people, not just praising them for what they did, but what type of questions did they come to you for? What kind of communication did you have with them? If that could be explained a little bit more fully, I think that people would understand more about the mentor relationship. Yeah.
So that's a big one. Maybe Al, go to the trellising. The trellising question was what came up. I think we're at the end of these guys' introductions. So I think what I'll do is we'll move on to Allison for our final introduction, and Stephanie, maybe we can come back to that for the discussion. It seems like there was a couple questions in there. Is that all right? And Allison, are you still with us? Can we?
Yep, I'm here. Just turned on my video.
Great. Okay. So why don't you tell us about Snapping Turtle Farm? And Allison and I were working together. I was Allison's mentor. We saw each other just twice, I think, and then finally got you to come visit North Slope Farm. But why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey? How long have you been at this property? How did you choose to buy it? And what's your
so
journey
we
been like?
are in, we just finished, 2020 was our 4th year of operation. I grew up in New Jersey, ended up going into a totally different career. Ended up spending 20 years in California in a different career, and then came back to New Jersey. I did kind of grow up at Cook College though. My dad ran the soil testing lab from 1967 to 97. So I was always around the university and around the ag students. And as Dad and I traveled quite a lot together, I basically heard every lecture in his basic soils class at least once. And we used to talk about all that. So he always told me not to go into farming. So I went into a completely different career as an anthropologist, and ended up working for museums, but was involved with a lot of friends in California who were involved with the local food movement. Used to work my friend's farmer's market stall. She has a sheep cheese farm down near Watsonville, California, a little south of San Francisco. And we decided a few years ago to come back to New Jersey, and we looked all over the state. And finally, after trying to buy a few different farms, we ended up in Cranberry, New Jersey, partly because it has a real dedication to preserving farmland in the community. We have Cranberry's only 3,000 people, and its density is 1/20th of the town next to it in terms of population density. So they're trying to preserve every bit of farmland. So they're really a pro-farm community, but also we're surrounded by places like Plainsboro, New Jersey, West Windsor, New Jersey, not far from Princeton, which are higher density communities with a lot of interest in local food. And so we bought, I don't know what we were thinking, we bought a completely unimproved piece of farmland almost 5 years ago now. And when I say unimproved, it did not have a driveway. So we would drive across the edge of our neighbor's field to get to our fields, which are behind his. So in the past 4 years, we've put in a driveway. Well, it's New Jersey, so the first thing we did was put in a deer fence. And then a driveway, a barn, figured out some irrigation. Over the last, we really knew we want to take care of the land organic. And so we ended up with our organic certification. And we sell mainly at community farmers markets. And then we also have a subscription program where we have people who sign up in the community get boxes of vegetables either delivered to them or they come to the farm and pick them up. This next year, we will be in 4 community farmers markets, including West Windsor. And so I'll be there with, maybe Mike went off, but Mike and I will be there together with 2 farms joining that market this year. Because as he meant, because the Plainsboro and West Windsor, New Jersey have a very large South Asian community, we have been growing a lot of South Asian vegetables. And it's been really an experience learning how to grow those. Yeah, and just a big learning experience. So Mike and I, when he'd come to the farm, we talk. My farm was intensely cultivated soybean, wheat, corn rotation for many, many years by a farmer who was renting it from an owner that was off-site. So there wasn't really a lot of attention paid to taking care of the land, I'll say. It's very, very sandy soil. So it's fair. So my organic matter in the soil the first year was less than 1%. So I've been working on building that up, a lot of cover cropping, a lot of additional organic matter that Mike and I have really been discussing. Because the low organic matter, we're trying to go minimal till, so I don't keep tilling and using up that organic matter. And so one of the things I experimented with this last year was having living aisles, basically planting a cover crop during the year between my rows. And that went pretty well this year to suppress weeds, but also keep that adding to the soil during the year. And Mike and I are looking at a different mix for the next year on that. Yeah. So it's been an odd year. Do you have any of the pictures I sent you of my market stall during a COVID year with all of us masked up? You can't even see it. You can't even see us because it's a rainy day. It's pretty funny. We've been doing farmers markets since the beginning, and this has been an interesting year. A couple of our farmers markets went online for half the year, and we were doing drive-through markets where you run out and stick something in someone's car. Other markets, Little Falls Farmers Market, for example, they decided to open, but then we were ended up with increased distance, no handling. It's the one with the red there. A lot of increased distance and no, so you can see that we have double tables, distance, no tablecloths because was a requirement so that everything could be really easily cleanable. This is later in the year, so we did decide, we did get permission to allow people to pick out their own tomatoes. With heirloom tomatoes, since they are so unique looking, it wasn't really working out to pre-box heirloom tomatoes we found. So, but it was an interesting year, that's for sure with that. On the other hand, our subscription program, we happened to launch the vegetable, box a week. The same week, New Jersey went on lockdown last year. I just happened to be marketing it March 15th. And so that we got all 20 families signed up in 2 hours. And I turned away many, many people. So we'll see how that goes this year. But there was definitely a lot of interest in that. Of course, by then I'd already done all the farm planning for the year, so I couldn't increase the number of families we could support because by March, everything was pretty well underway. So this shows our living aisles in between. Yeah.
I need
Was the high tunnel here, Allison, was that your first year growing in there, or was this your second year?
Yeah, that we put up, we got it up. I was just looking up the dates today for my organic farm plan update. In April, we put that up. That was also fun. I was hoping to bring a few people to help us with that, but at that time we really didn't want any, everyone was in lockdown. So it took a little longer than we thought to put it up with just 2 of us. And that wasn't, I was experimenting with that this year as the first year using that. So we did a variety of things in it. We did a squash and zucchini and a couple types of tomatoes, a couple types of cucumbers and peppers and eggplants to see which did the best for us. I was really happy with how much it extended our season for cucumber. Our cucumber disease out in the field tends to take us out pretty early. We're working on that. We didn't have that problem in the high tunnel. So while I didn't get earlier cucumbers, I got a longer cucumber season.
One of the interesting things visiting Snapping Turtle Farm and visiting Cluster Farm is like the difference between the scale of the settings. So I think, Allison, it seems like you've got a large parcel. And so it seems like one of your strategies is to not be afraid to spread things out. Like you said, planting the alley, trying to get the alleyways with establishing a living mulch to get that microorganisms flourishing in your soil. So different kinds of production methods from one farm to another.
Yeah, where we do our greens, we have them very close together. If you go back to the website, we might have, Facebook, we might have some pictures there. Our greens and brassicas and everything, we grow under covers, and those we put very tightly spaced. But this year we decided for our eggplants, I think you're at the very bottom. So if you scroll up, you'll get to more recent pictures.
When I was looking at everybody's Instagrams, I found that the most interesting photos I was finding at the beginning when everybody was all excited for taking their first photos.
Yeah, so our greens and things, we grow everything that we're harvesting the leaves of under row covers, and that we put really close together. But then our tomatoes, peppers, and eggplant that we do a lot, we were finding there had been a lot of problems with grasses growing over the edge of the plastic in previous years. So this year I said, as you say, we're not using all our space yet for production while we're still building infrastructure. So I said, let's spread it out so I can get the tractor down those rows. I was experimenting with mulching the edges of the plastic with wood chips this year and seeing what we could do to do it. And then just being able to mow regularly with a tractor in less time and continually mow. And it worked pretty well. We don't usually cover, there's pictures here of things like this is our first year. So the deer fence is only halfway up. So we literally covered every single thing, tomatoes, everything with row covers that you see there just to keep the deer off them until the deer fence went up. So there's tomatoes under there, there's squash under there, everything just because the deer pressure is so big in the area. That's why the first thing we did was fence in 18 acres of deer fencing. Which has really made it a lot easier to keep everything under control.
You're in an interesting juxtaposition between the intensive development and the big nursery on the other side. Is there anything you want to share about that?
Yeah, so one of the reasons we bought this piece of farmland is between us and there's literally apartment buildings that I can wave at. But between us is Cedar Brook, which is a small river. And so that is our buffer zone for the organic. and gives us some room between us and our neighbors. So that there is a little bit of room that we're not right up against them. I say we can wave, but that's like from a distance. This is some gooseberries we're putting in. We have never gotten, someone was asking earlier about complaints from the neighbors or anything. We've never gotten complaints from our neighbors. In fact, several of them are signing up this year to be customers for the subscription service. I was putting in a well, there was no well on the property. We had fun. It took us 18 months for PSE&G to get us electricity, which meant we couldn't put in a well pump for quite a long time after we had the property. But we were able to irrigate out of our Cranberry Brook and Cedar Brook. So the biggest problem this year with the neighbors is with COVID, we had a lot of people coming onto the property, which was not the best because my farm dog does not like other dogs. And we did have someone tear apart our irrigation pump. And it just seemed like someone bored wanted to do some destruction. So that was unfortunate. But in general, we really like it. Our town Cranberry, the apartment buildings are in Plainsboro. Our town Cranberry is very farm friendly and it's really been supportive. When we needed to do the barn, I drew up the permit. I literally did myself. I went out and printed out a map from a web soil survey, drew on it and turned that in to get it. So. We used the plastic mulch for weed suppression, and then I can't say that word, so the sun didn't get to it, occultation. And then we, when it was time to put in the fall carrots, we pulled it aside, smoothed it out, and planted the carrots. After, then plant them, then wait a few days, do a fire weeding before the carrots come up, and then we end up with a pretty good weed-free fall carrot crop. I do have 2 people worked with me this last year.
All right. Thank you very much, Allison. So I think that has brought us to the end of our individual introductions. And I've got some ideas from what you guys were talking about, some photos. We might try to round up some more for our Sunday presentation. And I'd like to open it up to, to the audience for asking questions. If anybody, feel free to unmute yourself and maybe introduce yourself, where you're calling from, and if you could direct it to who you're asking.
I think if Amanda's still on the line, she should curate some of the questions.
Okay, from the chat.
Several. Mark, are you on the line? Do you want to ask your question directly of the JPs?
Sure, this is Mark. Just to introduce myself, my wife and I recently purchased a farm property, and we have no experience at all. So we're just trying to get to learn and understand how everything works, and just get more knowledgeable about what is necessary. We're just trying to understand that we're in Morris County, New Jersey. So I guess my first question is just most people mentioned that their farm was a farm previously, and they it sounded like most of them were soy or corn, which is typically, not organic. So I just wanted to understand how difficult is the transition to something that is organic, and how does that work exactly?
This is an Al question.
Yeah, I was going to say everybody could really speak to that. Allison, you had your hand up. Did you have something on?
I was just going to plug NOFA's course on that I took on the transition to organic. I don't know if NOFA's still offering that. So at the beginning of our journey, my husband, who was even less experienced than I did, took NOFA New Jersey's course on the transition to organic, which was a 2-day course. and really went over everything we needed to know and think about in the transition to organic. So I'd highly recommend that. It is a 3-year journey of doing everything organic before you can get your organic certification.
The addendum to that is you don't know if the corn and soy was sprayed. It probably was, but it might not have been. So there's an addendum that the certifiers supply you with. If you can get the prior owner to sign an affidavit saying that nothing was sprayed. So we were a farm, or this was a farm prior to us getting it, but it was like managed in negligence. So there was an orchard, there were animals, but you know, the last owner was just like, no, I didn't do anything really at all. So he signed this document saying he hadn't sprayed a thing since 1946. We handed it to Eric Bremer, and Eric Bremer said thank you, and that was it. So that's one way to go about it. The other way is just to wait 3 years.
Mark, did you say you were starting farming?
Well, I wouldn't say starting farming. We're investigating on what it takes to do that. We just purchased a property in Morris County. It's kind of similar to the Gloucester farm. It's about a 7-acre farm property, which we live in, but also has pastures that was previously actually horse pastures. So we're investigating what we can do. You know, we're just starting off, so we really are very novice about what all it takes. So we're just trying to gain as much knowledge as we can. So it was just kind of interesting to see what everybody had to say and what their journeys look like so far.
Great. Well, I'm glad you found us. I hope you come back too. I was pulling up the resource. One of the things that we're trying to develop, NOFA is trying to develop, is to sort of take the next step into a more modern technical advice role, because we started out where we had a technical advice person because there wasn't a lot of web back in those days. And so you sort of had to have somebody who was reading the technical journals and sharing that information by phone. But now there's so much on the web, and we find that the new farms and the new farmers and established farmers too are really using the web to do their own research. And so this is a library that we hope to build out based on the discussions that we have with our journey persons and our members to try to find different classes and presentations that have been made over the years that will help us share information. So you might scroll around in here and find something useful, but please stay connected, come to our open houses, and come to the winter conference.
That was actually my next question. If you feel that there's some information we can definitely get out of the winter conference that would be valuable for us.
There definitely is. I mean, a bunch of the talks are more sort of general topics on, you know, like how are we coping with this world? But definitely I wonder, what's the best answer to that? Nagisa, how would you answer that question?
I'd say that if I was a beginning farmer, I would consider 2 things. One, going to Dan Mays's session on no-till farming, because he is an amazing farmer and he has a wealth of information. So I think I would go to that, and I would also go to Eric Tonesmeyer's talk, because I think if you're developing your own property, you want to really thoughtfully think about what kind of permaculture you want to grow on your farm. And it can honestly ease the pain of like annual succession crops, particularly when we're talking about vegetables. It would be really nice, honestly, to have a bunch of perennial crops on your farm. So I think those two folks are actually the time that I would focus on.
Yeah, Mark,
Go ahead.
And I'll just add I think the training Allison was referring to is now what we call the rotor certification. And one of the issues there for you is there's a whole section on transition. So that's relevant in that if you're thinking of being organic, certified particularly, there are certain things during your transition you can do to help make that happen, or actually to just hopefully not set you back 3 years, because there is a 3-year transition from the last application of a prohibited substance, which includes things things you don't think of, like treated seeds or certain treatments on seeds, to the actual harvest. So probably I would think we're going to be doing that again in the fall, although that's not yet on the calendar.
Yeah, so I mean, Al is speaking to, I believe, what is the secret sauce of organic certification. If you can watch the videos, take the class. The great thing about the in-person class is Al will answer your questions, and we also have Eric Bremer, who's responsible for the certification of farms in New Jersey, answering the questions. And I think Eric is a delightful person. Al is so approachable, so I would really think road certification. I mean, in fact, just to be honest, it's so good that our sister NOFAs are begging us to do the same course for New York and Connecticut, because they realize that this is a nice on-ramp for farmers to consider.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Mike, there is a course coming up. I think it starts February 17th. It's sponsored by Connecticut and Rhode Island NOFAs, and I think it's being done under a grant. I don't even think there's a charge for it. But it's not quite as New Jersey centric. If you're not in a hurry, again, I think we will do the course again in the fall.
Well, and so, I mean, not to shamelessly promote, but I will let you know that we do have Al's first run recorded. So if you are really interested in road certification, just call us. If you're a member, we would happily just provide you the links to the videos, and then you might want to consider talking to farmers in the NOFA network.
I would also interject that exploring the small farm dream would be a wonderful place to start for somebody who doesn't know anything about farming and wonders whether or not this is a profession to embark upon. And by the end of the course, you should have a good idea whether you want to be a farmer, and if so, you will have created a business plan. So that is an excellent course, and it's coming up very soon.
You're also welcome to come up here anytime and work for no pay and see if you like to farm, because that will be farming.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No, thanks for everybody for their advice. I appreciate whatever what you're offering.
Can I answer the question about neighbors real quick?
Please.
90% of my neighbors are CSA members now. So immediate neighbors are CSA members.
That's awesome.
5% come over, complain that the quality of the produce isn't great, and then still buy it. And the other 5% has forcibly gained entry to the farm, demanded to see all aspects of what we're doing, and asked us to sign legal documents not to do certain things like raise pigs. That's my experience with the neighbors.
Hey, Jared, I got a question. Does your, I forget, 80 or 90%, do they help buffer you against those 2 or 5%, whatever you said?
No, so I am, I don't think we showed like a perfect aerial map, but basically I'm on the major road in and out of like the 4 or 5 surrounding towns, Closter Dock Road, which goes to 9W and the Palisades Parkway. So on one side, it's a big road and my neighbors across the street couldn't care. The other 3 sides, I'm either immediately touching or there's a private road and then their homes, but it's within, a few feet and a quiet road. So the neighbors I'm talking about are anyone immediately adjacent, sharing the same fence line, or just across a tiny little road in that area. And because we're a big open space, sound travels. So there's this one house that loves to throw pool parties and would blast like top 20s music all summer. And then we would get blamed by neighbors across on the other side because they thought we were blasting music. So, yeah.
All right, I'm going to put a call out for any other burning questions for our journey persons, mentors. Sing it out now, because I'd like to cut everybody loose so they can get their dinner. And
if I can interject while we're waiting for anybody else to chime in, I think Steph asked earlier what we offered our mentees other than praise. And although they deserve huge amounts of praise because these are hardworking folks doing amazing things, at least in my experience, and it sounds like from everybody else, we offered resources, we offered information, we offered experience from many, many years of farming. So directly, we offered things like, hey, you should sign up for Plant and Pest Advisor, or hey, maybe you want to get a subscription to Lancaster Farmer because it's, you know, where you're going to find all the used equipment you need. When I wrote up my piece for Mike, I offered links to USDA regs on questions that we had when we were walking the field, who I liked best for soil testing, just any number of small conversations and a few farm visits that we could do this year. And that's the kind of thing that the mentor offers, is not only access to NOFA in general, as was talked about that Al offered out, you know, for his mentee, but it's the knowledge base. It's the many years of experience in the and the industry. That's what the mentee gets from we, the mentors.
Just
Stephanie, did you want to? I cut you off with your questions. Did you want to bring any of those up again, or?
No. What I think would be very helpful on Sunday is when everybody makes their presentation, to start out with an explanation. Do they own the land or lease the land? What size parcel is it? How large is the production area? And do they have any employees? And that would sort of set the stage for the type of operation that they're running.
Yeah, that's good. And that's the kind of feedback we're looking for, because we're way over an hour now. So the process of the introduction for the journey persons for this Sunday, we'll want to keep it tight. So having a clear idea of what we want to share, there may be a way we can do that more concisely. So I'll write up some notes and send them all to everybody for you guys in prep for Sunday. But I really appreciate everybody coming out tonight. And journey persons, congratulations on your year as a NOFA journey person. And thank you so much for being willing to share your journey.
Thank you for hosting.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We're hoping we'll do it in person this year. We'll see how things get, but maybe by the fall we'll be all sitting in the yard together.
Secrecy.
Hopefully.
All right. Well, I guess I will bid everybody good night, unless there's any burning questions or anything. But thanks again for coming, and we'll see you Sunday, if not before.
Good night.
Thank you.